Welcome to Beyond the Booth. I'm your host, Howie Cheney, along with Phil Harris, and our special guest tonight. We actually going to have two, but our first special guest tonight is going to be Coach Hammond from the Valleyhead Tigers. Coach Hammond, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to get the question started off real quick, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Phil Harris. And Coach, you're in your fourth year at Valleyhead. How much have you had to change your coaching in the last 4 years because of possibly the players that you've got?
Uh, Probably it's a little more lax for me. I tell this story all the time. I know I've moved quite a bit in my career. I enjoy building a program, or at least attempting to build a program. Coach Vincent and the guys had a great program here when I come in. But it takes me 1 or 2 years to make things functional for me, to raise a young group of guys that you get to grab. All that, you're on your toes. And after about 4 years, the kids kind of run themselves. I mean, they know what to do, where to go, what to pick up, what not to pick up, how to help around the field house, what we do at practice. So it becomes a little slower pace for me, I guess. So I don't want to say you get bored with it by no means, but it just gets easier over time.
Yeah, I understand that. And once the players get used to it, they know what to do. Kind of like what you said, Coach. You're losing. If I'm mistaken, you're losing 12 seniors off of last year's squad to this year. How are you going to replace all those?
Hopefully, we find 12 more. Uh, to be honest with you, we lost 12 really good seniors last year. The last 3 years have been a blast back at home here in this town with the community. The kids are the same kids that were Valleyhead. I really do believe this in the 60s. They're just fun, hard-nosed kids. They love football. What we do in the weight room, if somebody came to hire a strength and conditioning coach, I would be last on their list. There's not a lot of fog on the windows. There's not a lot of bungee cords and strings and apparatuses. We core lift, which puts a lot of bulk on kids. And fortunately, I get to start with my sixth graders. So by the time that kid gets in the eighth grade, he might not be able to bend over and tie his shoes, but he can squat 340. And an eighth grader that squats 340 at Valleyhead can play somewhere. So our weight program really has helped us to be able to replace guys that have left, and I'm hoping that we can do that every year. Right now, I feel we may not win as many games. Who knows about the win-loss ratio? I know how the kids are going to play. I think they're going to give everything they've got. But just looking at it on paper, I like this football team. Honestly, I like it a lot. A lot of people thought we were going to be down. A lot of people thought, well, they lost all those seniors. That's a bunch of the 1A school. Those seniors were so good, and they really was. Like all 12 of them was really good. But, this is the first time in my career that right now, if we started today and played a game tonight, I would start 8 kids on offense at Power Clean 250 plus. I've never had that.
Wow.
Never. I think we had 7 kids that run 4.7 or sub. I'm just really excited about them. We're really skilled in all the skill positions. Rydell Segura squatted 605 at Dade County at the weight meet with 2 judges. Kylan Tuberville squatted 505 today in the weight room for the first time over 500. Seth Hall, a kid that transferred into us, Seth's going to squat about 450. Seth's probably 6'2", 270. So I really feel good about them. I don't think we're going. I don't think we're going to see a decline much at all in what we've got as far as personnel.
Yeah, and you, like I said, you're losing those 12 seniors, but you also got some key players that are coming back. So it's not like your cupboards are just completely bare.
No, we're returning Titan Blevins at quarterback. Titan rushed for 1801 last year as a freshman. We're returning Nate Beynd as a tailback. Nate's going to clock any camp he goes to mid 4.5. Nate power cleans 260. He's going to squat 440 at 160 pounds. We're returning Ben Johnson, who's been our leading tackler on defense for the last 2 years. Ben's about 180 and runs a 4.7. Kaysen McElrath is back with us. Kaysen's a real skilled kid. Caden Collins is back. He started the last 2 years. Braden Hughes is going to be a kid that kind of gets in that mix. Kason Scholl's a kid that gets in that mix. Kason Scholl's 155 pounds. He power cleans 255. If we had a wrestling team, Scholl would be a state champion wrestler. So I just named a lot of skill kids, and I'm missing some, actually missing a lot. But that's just kind of the bulk of the skill kids that we've got returning.
Yeah, that's huge. That's one thing I remember talking to Brent Tinker one year when he was coaching at Ider, and I said, Coach, I said you're losing a lot of linemen, but you got skilled people back. He said, yeah. He said you can kind of teach the blocking schemes, but he said, the strength and stuff is hard to actually teach. But if you can make a little crease, those running backs know where to go.
Yeah, and Coach Tinker was exactly correct. We take a lot of pride in trying to produce good linemen and teach proper technique and have a little nastiness and be real strong. But now I've seen years that, you didn't have to be very good up front for a kid like Anthony Brown or Tyler Harrison or Scott Tate to take one to the house, So you got to have that back.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question, then I'll turn it over to Phil. Next week's going to be media days. I'm not asking you who you're going to take because you may not have told them yet or not. But how
Sure.
did you determine on who you was taking?
Well, and that's a great question, and that's tough on coaches year in, year out. I mean, it really is. And the last 3 years, we've really enjoyed media days, and I've always handpicked my captains. We don't vote on captains. I check attendance, look at grades, see who picks up around the field house, who's flushing commodes, who's here every day. And then I kind of pick my leaders and my captains from that. And I've generally taken them. And last year, our group was so good. I had 6 captains. So we had 3 at home games, 3 away games. I never had 6 before. And this year, I've kind of got into that same situation to where I have such a large number of kids that are deserving of captain. I haven't picked captains yet. So I'm going to pick out 4 upperclassmen and let them know that this is not a captainship. We're going to go to media days.
Right. So I like the way that you pick those captains out.
Yes, sir.
That's a cool way. Phil Harris, do you know Coach Hammond? Do you have any questions for him?
Yeah, I actually known him for a long time. So, it's been a pleasure. I've watched him grow up. Has been successful on the field, off the field. And also I'll just pat him on the back just a little bit. He does a great job with these kids, and it's the same with Coach Grant. These are 2 guys I really admire, not only for what they do for these kids off the field, but they're very involved in the community. And I know, Coach, you probably don't hear it enough, but I know a lot of people notice that you're involved in your community, and that means a lot to parents and kids.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. If you grew up here, and it should be this way anywhere, it really doesn't matter where you grow up. It really should mean something to you, and you should enjoy every minute you get to spend in the place you grow up. I'm just fortunate enough to have landed this job twice. One of the worst mistakes I ever made was leaving 20 years ago. Times were different, situations were different. But once I left, I was looking to get back to here every chance I got. I just wanted to be back in Valleyhead, but it doesn't matter. Valleyhead's a special place where nobody cares really what kind of car you drive or how much money you make or what color your skin is or where you come from or who your granddaddy is. Everybody kind of gets along and takes care of each other. And it's a special place. It really is. And I love going to the cafe and seeing the older folks. I love standing around town talking to the guys that come by. I've always been a Valleyhead fan.
Well, Coach, kind of changed gears just a little bit. I wanted to reach out to congratulations. I know you and Angie just celebrated your 23rd year of marriage here just a week or so ago. And I'm sure that means a lot to you. But I will tell you this, and I'm sure a lot of people will tell you this also. I think you definitely outkicked your coverage.
Well, I did. She's an extremely lucky lady, Phil. I don't. I really don't know how she does it. I don't. I've got a shop there, and we've got an apartment in the shop, and I piddle on a few old cars and meet a lot of folks. moving cars and different people from everywhere. And they come in, they look at the apartment and they say, well, this really is nice. And I tell them, I say, guys, this is how you stay married. You know, my wife has a house, I have the shop in the apartment, and we meet up together at supper time. But no, Angie's put up with a lot over the years, and she's a super special lady, and I did outpunt my coverage for sure. I don't know how I done it. The good Lord was just watching after me. I don't think any of the success or the relationships I've made with people or any of the jobs I've been able to take, I don't think any of them come about without my wife. I really don't. You know, I don't think that I would have stayed on the path that I'm on without her. So, you know, hats off to her, and thank you for mentioning that, Phil.
Yeah, well, too, you know, and I think she gets just as excited as you do about football season.
She really likes it. She does, and you know, it don't matter whether I was at Ridgeland or Dade County or Chattooga. You know, her and Macy wore the colors, and you know, a funny story. I don't know what anybody. I guess I've told it a couple of times, but you know, I've never had a number one on my team. I was a lineman, and I always was under that motto that, you know, the number don't make the player makes the number. And I think people need to go back to that some, or at least kids need to. So I never had a number one, but when we had our daughter, she wore number one. She's the only one who wore a number one jersey on any of my teams. So every year she's got whatever school I've been at, she's had a number one jersey on.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's you know, that's good stuff. I know you've got to be proud of her also. You know, being a, you know, and you talked about this at one time. I think you stepped down at coaching over at Chattooga County because you had missed so much of her ball seasons. You know, and you would often get there late, and was by the time you got there, you was ill and tired. So during her senior year, I think you kind of stepped away so you could enjoy a little time with her.
I did. We had made a couple. We won the first playoff game at Chattooga. We won the first home playoff game. We had the first team to win the second round game, and was the first team in history over there to go to the quarters. Really fortunate having a lot of good coaches and a lot of good players and great administrators. All pulled the rope the same way, and the money was really, really good for school teaching and coaching. And it was let's see, Macy was she was trying to think, yeah, Macy was a junior, and we were on our homecoming parade, and my superintendent at the time had a farm truck and a trailer, and he pulled the team in the parade, and I rode with him. And I remember the conversation well. I told him, I said, I'm going to step down at the end of the season. I just need you to know. And boy, we had a big, long conversation. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to go be a volleyball dad for 1 year. And he said, Coach, you can do both. He said, don't do. He said, you can do both. And I said, you don't know how my mind works. I can't do two things of anything at the same time and do it good. I said, I've missed so much. And I was good with my decision at the end of the year. The Monday after our last playoff game, I went into him, I resigned, and by Thursday I went back to him and I asked him to move me out of the high school to the middle school at Menlo to where I could get out of their way. And I planned on staying at Chattooga at the time, and things just kind of took a different path. And I had a job at Trine with Coach Brown, and Jeff Poston just got hired at Dade County, and that's only like 20 minutes from my house. And Jeff and them called and offered me a job there doing like credit recovery or something, and they took me in, and I was able to leave practice when she had games. So I still got to coach, but I wasn't the head coach, and I did not miss not one volleyball game that year. So been really proud of Macy. She took a job at the veterinary clinic there in Fort Payne for Jess, where Dr. Joe McNew was. She worked 3 years, never missed a day, always woke herself up early, worked weekends. I've never given her a dime. And she applied for the radiology school at Gadsden State. If you know anything about that, they have like 120 applicants, and they only take 24. Well, last year she did not get in, and it was stated because she had 5 Bs in her undergrad. I think I'm the only parent in the world that has paid for a kid to retake classes that they had Bs in. You know, so we retook 5 classes, and this year she was they were calling back 50. And she was 52 out of 50. So 2 people had to drop out. just good Lord willing, 2 people dropped out. They called her in. She got an interview, and they were going to pull 24 from that. She got the letter. She got in radiology school, so she starts at Gaston State this fall. So she's fixing to – this is her last week to work, and she'll start radiology school.
Oh, that's great. Good things happen to good people. That's just the way, that's the way things work.
I think
well, Coach,
so.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit about football. Of course, you had Jay Tyler Ellis, who was your full-time assistant last year. Well, he's moved on. And, of course, I haven't talked to you since anything that has kind of changed around. Scott Tate moved back to Valley Head. Is he going to help with the football staff? Talk about that and talk a little bit about your coaching staff right now and what their responsibilities are.
I would love to, and I'm glad you touched on that, Phil. We lost Jay Tyler last year. He took a job at Fort Payne. Scott come in, and Scott retired out of Georgia. And for people who don't know, Scott was a 10th grader on your state championship team. Scott was one of the better basketball players to ever come through here, come from a great family. I've never seen Scott Tate upset at anything. He's been the happiest guy you'll ever meet in your life. Scott done a wonderful job over in Georgia. He was a head coach, I won't say is at West. He's coached all over there around not West Side Augusta, not Macon. I'm sorry, West Side Augusta. He coached all over there at the Augusta area. Got his 31 years in. He came home. We had a job over here at the school. It was a non-teacher job. And Scott was just wanting to take a step back. And he's been happy ever since. And every time I see him, I just beg. I don't beg him, but I twist on him. And Scott's going to settle in for a year. And I'm hoping that once Scott gets settled in, we're here in a year that we can get him to help us next year. But unfortunately, he's not going to be able to this year. But we're glad to have him back. I mean, Scott is, you like being around winners, and Scott's been a winner his whole life. I think Scott was probably one of the last guys to graduate Valley Head and go play 4 years. Scott played on Bowden's 12-1 team at Sanford and, played at safety. So Scott played 4 years at Sanford University and done well for himself. So, a little school like Valley Head, you're get one of those guys back. As far as me, somehow, some way, the good Lord's took care of me, and it's like being in the box in the bottom of the ninth and the base is loaded down forward and you swing, the thing goes over the fence and you just hit the home run. Nikki Peppers was my assistant head coach at Chattooga for 6 years. Nikki, he holds about 40 weightlifting records. Nikki played at 5 for Coach Ronnie Householder. Nikki played against me. Nikki's 2-0 in MMA. Nikki run a gym where they train fighters. He done a lot of work with a Pete guy that's doing the fighting, I think. But Nikki had stepped away from football for a year, and he called me. He said, I'm ready to go back to coaching. I said, well, how are we going to do this? He said, well, I get done over here 2:30 Georgia time. I only have 2 years left in Georgia. He said, I'm just going to make a loop. He lives kind of there over the mountain from Trenton. He said, I'm in. So we picked up Nikki Peppers full time, and since he came on, Nikki's been here every day. He even rode to Montgomery with me today. And then I had a defensive coordinator at Chattooga that was from Hoax Bluff. The head coach is at Hoax Bluff right now. They played on the same high school team. Bob Smith he put in 31 years at Chattooga, coached every year as far as I know. He was my DC for that run over there for the whole 6 years. Bob had retired, moved to Gillsville there at the lake, and had worked at Gillsville last 3 years, and his job was federally funded or something, and they kind of cut the job. Well, today at the board meeting, they hired Bob here to teach history, so Bob's coming on board with us. So we picked up 2 really seasoned, good football coaches that I trust, that I've worked with before. John Kirby, everybody knows what John brings to the table. John's here all year, all the time, helps with the painting. He's our offensive coordinator. You couldn't ask, nobody could be lucky enough to have John Kirby on their staff. John's from Valley Head. That makes a big difference also. John's great with the kids, does a great job with our offense. Every year we've had 1,000-yard plus rushers. We're real productive. Craig Hogan's from Valley Head. Craig's still working with us. Craig pulls our trailer, works with the offensive line and the running backs, helps John with the offense. Jared Hogan, the cousin of mine that played at Concordia, graduated at Valleyhead. Jared does our offensive line, does a great job. Jonathan McGill is back with us. Jonathan helps with the D-line, helps me with all the computer stuff. He's from Fife. He was at Sandrock, but he was with us last year. Kobe Harrison, who played for me, does our linebackers. Kobe's been with me ever since I've been back, does a super job. And he played linebacker for me in the same scheme. And then Ben Kirby does the DBs. Ben is John's son, who played quarterback at Valleyhead. So there's a lot of Valleyhead ties back at Valleyhead right now. Rayford Bethune does our special teams and does my 7th, 8th grade football team. So me and Rayford's been close our whole life. I don't know if you ask me, I don't know how a guy could have a friend like Rayford. We've been close, ever since day one. And he played up in Athens at a school there for a year. But we're real fortunate to have a lot of help. Rayford's boy Jordan helps us. Jody Nance is taking over with the quarterback club. Wesley's still helping him there some. Josh Smith does the announcing. He played for me. Jody does our stats. So we're real fortunate to have a lot of help. I know it's a lot of names, but it's a lot of good quality names. I mean, we've been real lucky to put together a group of guys to work with these kids. So right now I feel like our kids are fortunate to be around the men that are here.
Well, Coach, let's look a little bit into the season while we have, what time we got left. Of course, the last 2 years, I think you were the region champion 2 years ago, region runner-up last year. You've been able to get to the second round. The one roadblock you've had, and I'm sure you would love to cross, is to get past that second round. It seems to be a nemesis, and I know these kids last year really wanted to make that next step. It didn't work out for them, but that has to be a goal going into the season.
Right now, it's our only goal. Really, the second round has not been our nemesis. The fourth quarter of the second round has been our nemesis. 2 years ago, we're leading into the fourth quarter. Last year, we go into the fourth quarter down 17-16. It's just been our fourth quarter play. And, I don't know that it was our fourth quarter play as much as what it was the way the ball bounced. And I know that you got to make it bounce your way. But, yeah, we really want to get out of the second round, and that's what we all want to do.
Yeah, definitely. So, because really the young men you've had the last 2 years, that's school record getting to the second round 2 straight years. People don't know, what an accomplishment that has been for these kids. But now the region changes just a little bit, Coach, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, Ider drops down to 1A. You don't deal with Coosa anymore. Cedar Bluff goes up to 2A. You'll still play Cedar Bluff. But now you get Raglan, Spring Garden, and Ider, who moves down from 2A. So really, you lose a couple of nemesis in Decatur Heritage and Coosa, but Raglan and Spring Garden, great football programs, and you got to think Ider's going to be a lot better moving down from 2A to 1A.
Oh, they sure will. And Coach Grant does a super job. Coach Grant's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I think he'd do anything for me, and I'd do anything for him. He'd do a job there with those kids. The swapping of the region teams, really, people ask me about it, and I tell them, I said, well, the only difference is the 2 we're getting is public, and the 2 we lost is private. And that's really the only difference. You're picking up a really high-quality Spring Garden team, a really high-quality Raglan team, an Ider team that's dropping from 2 to 1, that's going to be hungry. You open with Cedar Bluff. You got North Sand Mountain again. Collinsville game 10. For a little old 1A school, we play section also for non-region. They're going to be better. Riley's a great guy, a good friend of mine, does a super job, and I know they're going to be better. I don't know. You can look down the schedule, and Appalachians, they played us tooth and nail the last 2 years. Woodville's kids last year against us probably played us as hard as anybody, doing what they're supposed to do and playing hard the whole game. I think they're going to be better. I think it's anybody's game. I really do. I think it's a real evenly matched group with, Spring Garden with the history, with the history of the last 8 or 10 years or whatever it's been. You have to rank them up right up. You have to put them up to top, if you're talking about anybody.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, a couple of years ago, Coach, kind of when you was going into the season, you you were kind of worried about, input from, your line play. Well, then last year your line play was the strength, but you were kind of inexperienced in the skill positions. Well, this year it seems like you've got a lot of balance. You got a pretty good nucleus coming back on the defensive side of the ball. Your skill people, is that probably you would say is the strong point of this football team?
Yeah, I think our skill positions is a strong point, but I'm probably going to go out on a limb and say we're as balanced right now as I've been in a long time. I think we're holding close to like 33 kids. Our top 15 kids are really, really special. And, I look out there and I've got kids running number 3 linebacker. They got a lot of playing time last year. We're overloaded with, 10, 15 kids that all are going to see the field on special teams. We're really close to, having this thing, hopefully, where we're just producing every year to just refill the shoes of the seniors.
Yeah, definitely. So I can understand. Well, tell us, I know you don't want to really go in depth with this, but tell us some of maybe your concerns with this football team.
Well, Phil, that's the scary part. Right now, I don't know that I couldn't tell you a concern. I'm going to tell you why. They like each other. They really like each other. I've never seen, since we started in the weight room and, at the end of the season last year with this group, I've never seen the first pick at, the first argument, the first belittle from no one. They encourage and help the young guys, the 7th and 8th graders. They're here every day. They put their cleats on outside. They're on time. They run through the line on their gassers. I thought we was going to be terrible out of shape because we don't run in June. This week we ran 3 gassers and nobody's thrown up. So I don't. That's the scary part. I wished I had a concern. I guess my biggest concern for this team would be, what are we going to do when things go bad? And that's almost for every team. How are we going to react? How are we going to rally the troops? How are we going to bounce back when something goes bad? And if you've got a team that'll grit their teeth and say it's our turn now, you got something special. So that's yet to be seen.
Of course, you talked about this with Howie, where, you've come in and laid a foundation. And, to be successful, your football team has to be player-driven. Well, they already know the do's and don'ts before they ever hit the field. But there's always a concern with a coach, and every coach will tell me this. The biggest thing is today, social media, kids don't communicate as much, like the old days. So sometimes that's getting Coach Riley Evers, and we had him on, this was a concern for him about kids sometimes don't communicate, and that takes on to the field sometimes too, where they sometimes tend to not communicate. Is that a concern for you as a football coach? Because, it just seems like kids just don't communicate like they used to.
Yeah, I got a 21-year-old daughter that struggles with that. I think it's just a sign of the times right now. But we spend so much time together without our phones that they're almost forced to learn how to communicate. They really are. I haven't had a whole lot of trouble with it with our kids thus far. But it's just something that's a way of life now. It's even with adults. I'll be sitting at the house and there'll be a movie on. We eat supper or something. We're done with everything. And I'll look up. My wife's been looking at her phone for 30 minutes, and I've been looking at my phone for 30 minutes. We ain't said a word. So I think it's just what's going on in the world today. It's sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely so. And, and another thing, Coach, I know you talked about, you don't really have a whole lot of concerns with this team. Well, sometimes, and this happens, in successful programs, and you can look at 5, winning becomes a habit. So a lot of times, these kids expect to win. They walk out on the field expecting to win. And when you have that certain confidence, it's not a cockiness, but it's a kind of a certain attitude that they have, and you can see it in their eyes.
The confidence that you're talking about, Phil, once you get it, there's no weight room in the world that can beat it. There's not. If you've got kids that walk out confident and they're used to winning and they know they're supposed to win, it'll get you through a lot of hurdles. It really will. It'll win you a lot of ball games where you're not the best team.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, Coach, I want to ask you this. I'm a new football player on your team, and I'm with the group, and you're addressing the football team. What are the expectations for this football team?
Well, the first thing I do if you're a new kid on the team, I introduce you to the whole team, and I explain to everybody how tough it is to be in a new setting and how much help you need to let you know that you're in a special place and people care about you around here. And then I pretty much just I'd stick you to a rack with one of my older kids, and I'd say, follow him, he's got you. And the expectations kind of take care of themselves after about a day. You know, that they kind of just follow the rest of the herd to the field, you know.
I think, that's tradition too. Also, when I first moved to Valley Head, my 10th grade year, I can remember the first day of practice when Coach Pullen introduced me to the team. And, and the guys, I was in the 10th grade class, and there were several of them. And, they made me feel at home right off the bat. And when I left practice that first day, I just thought to myself, I found a home. And all my career, I had moved around. I lived all over Chattanooga, bounced back and forth to everywhere. But that first day of practice,
you knew you was home.
Like I was at home.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, and you hit that right on the head. A goal of ours here, we've lost so many kids to other places over the years for whatever reasons. And one of my first goals was to keep our kids and then possibly get some of our kids back. And we've been able to do a little bit of that through just, contacts and this, that, and other. But now I'll tell you, we've had a couple of move-ins for the last 3 years. And I had a kid that came in from Chattooga, I guess last week. And then I had another kid that moved back from Florida. And I explained to both of them that if you have any questions, you need to go talk to Hunter Robinson. You need to go talk to Colin Tuberville, because I've not seen those kids frown one day. They're the happiest guys I've ever seen due to them moving back to Valley Head or moving to Valley Head. And I don't know what happened or went on wherever else. Only thing I can say is when they got here, for some odd reason, kind of like what you were talking about, they just went right in with the rest of the group, fit in, and felt like they were at home. So I don't think, I've never had one come up to me and say, man, this was a bad move for me. I wish I was back in Florida. So it's been good. The kids here they're just good kids. They're fun.
Coach Hammond, we appreciate you coming on. We know you got another obligation to get to.
Thank you, Howie.
We're going to get you off here real quick, and thanks for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. Before you go, do you have any fundraisers you want to promote real quick?
Well, thank you, Howie. Yeah, we're doing our gun raffle right now. You can buy 1 for $20 or 6 for $100. We give away 3 guns every Friday night here at the stadium. And that's really the only raffle we got going on other than selling signs and stuff. But before I get off, I would like to give a shout out to a kid. We have an 8th grader. I've nicknamed him Mongo, James Morrow. James came to me as a 7th grader. He'll be an 8th grader now. Last year was his first year to play. James is a big, strong, raw-boned young kid that the greatest weightlifting competition in the United States is called the USAPL. They have 3 judges with lights. Everything is on command. Everything is paused. You have to have on long socks, brief underwear. It's the strictest weightlifting event you can go to. James went to one last year, qualified him for the Nationals in South Carolina. James is 13 years old, and in his weight class, last Thursday or Friday, I think it was, they sent me a picture of James standing on the podium. He was the 2nd strongest third grader in the United States. The kid that beat James beat the kid in squats by 10. The kid beat James by 10, maybe in bench press. And then James missed his 2nd deadlift, which put him to where he couldn't go up as much on his 3rd. And the kid pulled away about 20 pounds on the deadlift to win the national title. So right now at this little Valley Head High School, we have the number 2 strongest 8th grader, 13-year-old in the country. And his name's James Morrow. So I want to give him a shout out.
Oh, absolutely. Congratulations to him. And Coach, we know you got a meeting to get to, and so we're going to let you go, and we're fixing to bring in Coach Grant from Ider, and we're going to talk about you while you're not here.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I hope y'all have a great weekend.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you. I'll see you next Friday at Media Days.
One last thing. I know everybody's in a hurry. Phil Harris used to throw me in the dadgum cold water shower after a ball game on Friday nights, and I ain't forgot it. And it's coming back to him one day. One day. See y'all.
Thanks, Coach Hammond.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Phil, a great man, great coach. Seems like he's got things turned around there at Valley Head.
I think it's become a culture there. And we didn't really get to talk about this, and we'll talk to Coach Grant about it too. Fife's kind of sort of raised the bar for high school football in Northeast Alabama, but everybody's following suit. I mean, we've got some great football programs now that do well in the playoffs. And it's amazing how football has advanced over the last several years in DeKalb and Jackson County.
Oh,
and as well as Cherokee County.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of Coach Grant, Coach Chad Grant, welcome to the show, the head coach of the Ider Hornets.
Thank y'all, guys. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we appreciate you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got you. Appreciate you coming on the show. Okay. And I know you got a lot of stuff going on this week with it being the All-Star Week and everything down in Montgomery. Are you in Montgomery at the moment?
No, I just made it back to Ider. I'm actually walking up on top of our stadium to be sure I can get a good signal. I just rode here on 2 wheels.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us and everything. And Coach, tell us about your summer. How's everything going so far?
It's gone really well. We've had really good participation, really good attendance for the summer. Kids have been working extremely hard because this is probably, since I've been the coach here, probably the toughest summer that we put them through.
Right.
I made a decision after we played 5 last year, and after we talked to the seniors, I thanked them and sent them out, and then I talked to the underclassmen and kind of told them some things that have got to change a little bit. And so that's kind of what we did, and that's what we've done this summer. And so it's been tough, but the kids have responded the way I wanted them to. So it's been a good summer.
Well, you dropped down to 1A. That's going to help you out a lot, but it's going to be a tough region with all the teams that's in 1A from the Northeast Alabama area.
Well, a lot of people have told me that, but now I felt like we were in the toughest 2A region in North Alabama, if not the toughest region. We just came out of, and then we dropped down to 1A, but now that 1A region is not too shabby either. I mean, you got Spring Garden, you got Raglan. Spring Garden and Raglan, they didn't lose a soul last year. And, of course, Coach Hammonds done a tremendous job at Valley Head. And you're talking about 3 playoff teams right there. And we ain't even got to the rest of them. So, we did drop down to 1A, but we still got a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, absolutely. You got media days coming up this week, and I asked Coach Hammond that was just on this same question. I'd like to ask you as well. You don't have to say the players that are going if you don't want to, and I understand that. But how did you choose who would be going to the media days?
Well, we did it a little bit different this year. This is something that I really wanted to do for a while now, but I made the decision this year that we were going to do it. I actually have a captain application. It's got a lot of questions, and the kids that want to apply for to be a team captain, they fill out that application. They come in to the coaches, and they do an interview just like you would on the job. And I'm going to let them know Monday who we picked out of. I think I had 6 applicants who we picked out of those 6 applicants, and they'll be our team captains, because the questions are really good. I worked with other coaches at other places I'd been, and me and another coach had actually got this together and we had changed some things, and I decided this was the best year to do that. So come Monday, the kids will know, and everybody will know, I guess, Friday, who those two young men are. But I just want to say the six that applied did a really good job and everything. But it's a special privilege to be a team captain, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it takes a special kind of person, because one thing that I preach to the kids all the time, people's got this leadership messed up. You know, the greatest example that I know of comes from the Bible, and when Jesus was sitting around at the Last Supper, and everybody's kind of looking around to see who was going to wash somebody's feet. Nobody was doing it, and he stepped up and he did it himself. And to be a true leader, you got to be a selfless servant. You don't look around and tell other people to do it. You step up and do it. You show them the way, and that's what he was doing, was trying to show an example what a true leader is, and that's kind of what we are looking for in that team captain.
Yeah, come on now, preach it. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
So I love the way that you're teaching the kids about football, but also teaching them about life. Because once you get out of high school, college, whatever, unless you're just filthy rich, you got to go and apply for a job somewhere. So that's giving them a heads up and a step forward.
Yes, sir. And honestly, if you're in it and you're doing it for the right reasons, that's the reason why you're a football coach. Because I love other sports, but there is no sport out there that is closer than what life is truly like than football, because it's hard. Heck, it ain't easy to put on 70 pounds worth of equipment, get out here in this hot Alabama August sun and run around and hit one another. And that's what life's like. And sometimes life is going to hit you right in the mouth, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Just like on Friday night, somebody's going to hit you in the mouth. What are you going to do? Are you going to lay down? Or are you going to step up and put your head down and keep fighting? And that's the thing that I love about being a high school football coach. And I hope the kids that come through our program kind of take some of that with them, because that's what my head football coach taught us, and it made an impact on my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a couple more questions, and I'll turn it over to Phil. But you mentioned something, putting the 70 pounds worth of pads on and everything. You see all these guys running these 40s at 4.4, 4.5, and all that, but they don't have those pads on. Have you ever took the opportunity and just had the players to run the 40 with fully dressed out with pads, shoulder pads, helmet, and everything on, just to see what the difference would be?
Well, I can tell you, you can run a 4.440. You can. But can you sustain that 4.440 for 4 quarters? That's the difference in being a championship. I mean, anybody can get out here and sprint 40 yards 2 or 3 times and get their best speed. And look, a 4.4 is special. When I was at Buckhorn in 6A ball, people act like a 4.4 is like that's common. But if you watch the NFL Combine, there ain't many 4.4s ran.
No.
But the thing about it is can you sustain that level throughout the game? And I would rather have a 4.8 guy that's a 4.8 in the first quarter and a 4.8 in the fourth quarter, and be able to sustain that for that period of time. But I've not really tried that here. But it's a difference, and that's the wear of fall count, is how much can you sustain that.
Right. One more question turned over to Phil, and I ask everybody this question so Phil and everybody knows what's coming up. Being a coach, do you have any superstitions that you got to do before a game or during game week?
Well, I don't know if you would call them superstitions. My wife, I guess you could say she's superstitious, because she always gives me a little goodie bag, and she's a blessing, because you can't really do this thing the way it needs to be done if you don't have a wife that's a head coach too. And she always makes me a little goodie bag with a little saying on it, usually a Bible verse or something on it, and has it for me in the mornings. But I will tell you this: The only thing she don't do, and this has been going on for years, like every morning she fixes my coffee before I leave for work, except on Fridays. She doesn't fix me coffee on Friday mornings, and that's just something that she's done. We won a big game when I was offensive coordinator at Buckhorn, and she didn't. She forgot and didn't fix me coffee that morning. So from that point on, she's never fixed me coffee. So I guess if we have a superstition, that's it.
Good. Everybody's got something that they kind of got to do. Either put, we had somebody say they wore the same socks all season until they lost a game or something, and all this stuff. So I always like to know, because when I played basketball, and I had my little uh, superstitions that I had to do as well. So I always ask everybody, and some people will say they do, and I feel like everybody does. They just may not realize it.
Right.
But anyway, Phil Harris, take us away.
Well, Coach, I want to ask you this. Your wife, Shelly, I mean, she means a whole lot to you, and I wanted to ask you about this. And of course, I told Coach Hammond, he just had his 23rd wedding anniversary. Are you like him? Did you outkick your coverage?
Oh, yes, but I'm gonna tell you this: she's the luckiest woman in the world. And if you don't believe it,
he said the same thing.
We've been married. We've been married a little longer than what Coach Hammond. We just celebrated our 29th anniversary in June. So, oh yeah, I couldn't do this job without her. I mean, I say this, and not to get too sentimental here, but she's the best person I've ever known. And if you talk to a lot of people that know her, they'll say the same thing. But she keeps me honest, because she's a great encourager when I'm aggravated and don't think that I'm doing a good job. And then she's the first one to tell me to suck it up and quit whining. And she's also the one that kind of holds me accountable. So I couldn't do this job without her.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I understand. And it's been tough the last couple of years. I know the year you had the playoff team, they were very good. And year before last, injuries kind of derailed you at the first of the season. Of course, last year, you had, a lot of inexperience on the team. And it's trial, it's trial and error for a coach. It gets tough. It's as tough on you as it is those kids. And of course, you had talked about this. I think you said you kind of come to a crossroads where you were going to change the culture, basically, of this football team, because you don't want losing to become a habit, because winning is a habit, but losing can also be a habit.
That's right. And here's the thing that I'm a firm believer in, and all that is perfectly true. But, Ider is a unique community. Because and I've told these kids, and it's been that way. It was that way when I played. It was that way for teams before that. But if they'll come out here and they'll play their guts out and they'll hit somebody in the mouth on Friday night, people in this community will come and watch them and support them every Friday night. And they just will, because that's what they want to see. They want to see a team that's going to go out there and play their tail off for 4 quarters and hit people in the mouth. And whether we win or lose, they can live with that if they know they're out there giving it everything they got. But what they can't tolerate, and what I can't tolerate, is when we go out there and we don't do those things. And so, we've had a lot of conversations over this summer, and we had a great off season, probably the best off season I ever had. I had kids getting unbelievably strong, and we really put an emphasis on nutrition this year, and I've had kids gain anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds. And I've had some offensive linemen that I gave them a mark, and some of them lost 45 pounds over the summer that they needed to lose. And, they have worked extremely hard, and I'm very proud of them. And I'm tickled to death and excited to kind of get this thing going.
Yeah, definitely. So, and of course, you had talked about, dropping down to 1A. One concern, and I know, everybody has this concern, dropping down to 1A, you lost a couple of your natural rivals in Fife and Pisgah. So the only thing is about dropping down to 1A, yeah, the competition is still going to be tough. There's still great football teams in that 1A Region 8. But what kind of hurts is a little bit is you're going to suffer a little bit at the gate. And, as well as I do, athletics is an investment now.
Oh, yeah. And, that's like we had quite a few kids come out this year, and it was a blessing, but, I had to buy 10 extra helmets that I didn't expect I was going to need. And, they don't give them helmets away. And our quarterback club has done a really good job because we knew this is kind of coming. And one good thing about it, we was able to keep some of those rivalries for non-region games, but it ain't going to help us this first year because, both those games are away. But, it will hurt a little bit at the gate. We've just got to buckle down, do a good job fundraising, and kind of keep those dollars coming in because people don't understand. A new helmet now is $400. I don't care where you buy it. Some of them's even more than that. And you got to have shoulder pads and you got to have the girdles. And it's expensive.
Yeah, of course. Coach, I know you have a lot better expectations this year. Of course, your JV team last year had a good season, and that probably got folks feeling a little bit better about things, and maybe they see the future as being bright for your football program. But you look at the schedule. I'm not going to say they're must wins right off the bat, but the kids need to play well early because they need a confidence shot. And not only do they need it, you as a coaching staff need it too.
Oh, you're exactly right. We had a lot of success in our junior high program, and we got great kids. And yes, we got a lot. We got numbers in our younger class, and they work really hard. We had summer workouts for our junior high kids, and we had almost 100% attendance 7th and 8th grade, and that's unheard of at a lot of places for 7th and 8th graders to come up here and work out in the summertime. But they've kind of, the kids around here have kind of bought into what we're doing. They're more comfortable with it. They kind of know the expectations of what they need. And, one thing that I shared with the kids this offseason, outside of our field house, my head coach, Coach Tommy Wells, he always said this, and I'll never forget it. And it's actually on the outside of our field house. It says, if you work hard enough, long enough, you will be successful. And I was doing some reading this winter because I love reading quotes and different things other coaches say. And I run across this quote from Jim Valvano, coached at North Carolina State. And I'm going to kind of paraphrase it a little bit. But basically, he said, all his life, he thought if you worked hard, you were successful. And it guarantees success. But he said that's not true. He said working hard does not guarantee success. But he said one thing that he does know, and that is true, is that if you don't work hard, you'll never be successful. And I've kind of preached that to our kids all year long because they have worked hard. I mean, they have worked extremely hard, probably the hardest working group I've had. But I want them to understand that it doesn't guarantee success. But if they don't work hard, they're never going to be successful. That's in football or life. So, we want to get some. We want to try to step out there and it's good. It would be real nice if we could come out of the gate and win quickly. But they need to understand if they play hard. That's my goal. That's always been my ambition here is I just want kids that'll go out there and just play their guts out for 4 quarters and hit people in the mouth. And then we'll let the chips fall where they may. We may not win the game, but the other team will know they've been in the game and they're lucky to get out of it. And that's
definitely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's what Ider's known for. I played against Coach Allday back in the early 80s, and all 3 years that we played, we beat Ider all 3 times. But man alive, we would get their best every time we played them. And it was always a friendly type rivalry. Never no mouthing. But yeah, we got the very best out of Ider, and even though we won, we knew they'd been there.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask of any team. I mean, sometimes the other team's just gonna have more talent. It happens. Sometimes the ball just don't bounce your way. It happens. But at least if you go out there and you're giving everything you got, you're gonna give yourself a chance to win. You may not win, but if you're giving everything you have, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna give yourself a chance to win, and that's all anybody can ask for is a chance to win.
Well, Coach, tell us a little bit about your staff and what their responsibilities are.
All right. Well, Coach Rayner, he's the only coach I have on staff. He's the defensive coordinator. He graduated here from Ider, and he's quite a bit younger than me because, like Coach Hammond, we're both kind of old and long in the tooth. But, he does our defensive coordinator. Jay Massey, who I played with when I was in high school, he helps Coach Rayner with the defense and coaches our linebackers. Coach Blevins, who's actually a South Pittsburgh graduate, he came up last year and started helping us, and he coaches our D-line and helps with wide receivers. And Seth Bench, who was a quarterback here back for those teams that Coach Tinker had, I think in 09 or 2010, that made it the third round. He coaches our wide receivers and our outside linebackers, and he does a really good job. And actually this year, my son, he's going to be helping, and he's going to be coaching quarterbacks and defensive backs. And he actually just got hired as a teacher's aide here at Ider this morning, so he'll be here with me. And of course, TD, he's our stat guy on the sidelines, and he does a really good job with that. So, I got some really good coaches, and, at a small school, the one thing I will say, I have really good volunteer help because these guys don't get paid for what they do. They come out here because they love this school, they love this program, they love them kids. And it's a real blessing to have those guys because if I didn't, it'd be me and Coach Rayner out here by ourselves. And,
Coach, Coach,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no.
I'm sure, when you've talked about, working all summer to get these kids to get on the same page, and you was talking about leadership, does some of the, you had talked about to Howie about how you was going to pick your captains, and I hear this a lot from coaches, with social media, kids don't seem to communicate as much. Is that part of the process of doing an application to where you force that young man to come in your office and speak? Because that's great for these kids, because not only do you need them to communicate with you as a coach, but they need to be communicating with their teammates on the field, because if a team's not player driven, they're not going to be successful.
No, and you said it. I read something on Twitter, or it's not called Twitter anymore, whatever it's called. But
we call it Twitter on here, Coach, so you're good.
Okay. Well, that's all I know of that.
Yeah.
But I read it, and it went something like this, and I can't exactly quote it, but it said, average teams, coaches lead. Good teams, players lead. Your best teams is where your best players lead. And that's the truth. And, with that whole picking the captains in this way, it does allow them to communicate. And I actually tried. I tried to force them to, because, we didn't have cell phones when I played. When the coach told you something, you went home, told your mom and daddy what your schedule was so they would know. And heck, I can't get my kids to talk to their mom and daddy. And so I tell every one of them that by the time they're 30, all of them's going to have neck problems from doing this right here all the time.
Yeah.
But, one thing that I started this year, and I'm trying to kind of cut that out the best I can, because you're never going to cut it out. That's just a sign of the times. But, when they walk in that field house door, those cell phones are off. off until we get done. That's on during practice, during game day. It don't matter. Them cell phones are not on, because they need to learn to communicate. And two, it kind of prepares them, because one day they're going to walk in for a job interview, and there's going to be guys sitting around, and it kind of helps. I just felt like it kind of helps them understand what it's going to take to do all that. So plus it kind of gives me an opportunity, because when I give them the application, I make them do it at school. So, they can't go home and really think about it. I'm getting honest answers from them. And that's what I want, because I don't want them to give me lip service, because I could ask anybody on the team to tell me to answer those questions, and they're going to try to tell me what I want to hear. I don't want that. I want to know what they really believe. So, yeah, that's it. And in football, you got to communicate. Defensive backs got to communicate. Offensive line has got to communicate. So, and we're very fortunate here. They do a good job of encouraging one another. This is probably the best team I've seen. They encourage one another in the weight room. If somebody's struggling with a set, with a rep, they're all around there yelling for them to get it, and it's really good. I've been very pleased with them.
Well, Coach, tell me this. I know you probably don't want to mention everybody's names, but tell me some of the kids you're counting on this fall to become leaders, to step forward. Some of the guys you're counting on, because it's just like anybody else. These kids love to hear their names. But tell us some of the ones that you're really counting on this fall.
Well, and I'll have to think of his real name, because I gave him a nickname years ago. Bradley Furlong, who is one of our big offensive linemen. He's going to be a junior. He's done really well this year. I'm really expecting him to anchor that offensive defensive line. We have two twins, Taylor and Tyler Kidwell. They started for us last year and played in every game. I'm really looking for them to kind of step up, and they've already done that. They've done a good job. Matt Mahan, who's another sophomore, he's one that kind of came out after I got here, and great kid, works super hard, does everything right, does everything he's supposed to do, and I think he's going to have a good year this year. Aiden Meadows, who is one of our two seniors, he's going to he can kick the hound out of a football now. I think he's going to give us an opportunity to have some chances to get points in the red zone. Caleb Cronin, who played running back last year, and his first time played running back, and did a decent job this year. He has worked super hard. Come up here, and I've been up here mowing and see him running stadiums by himself, and I'm looking forward to him having a big year this year. And there's a lot of them I can name. We're going to be young. I've got two seniors, 3 juniors, 12 sophomores, and 12 freshmen. And so we're going to be young, but I'll tell you, I really like our kids. People ask me all the time, Coach, what do you think the season's going to be like? And I tell them I don't really know. I know we're working hard, but you don't really know about a team till you put them pads on and they get hit in the mouth. How they going to respond? And that's something that we've been preaching this year, is how you going to respond when you get hit in the teeth. Everybody's a champion when everything's going great. Everybody's fired up and happy and tickled to death, and everybody's jumping around and going hard when you're winning. But that first time you get hit in the mouth, what are you going to do? And that's something we've really been preaching this summer, is being able to overcome that. And I'll tell you, I know I'm going a little long here, but I heard this years ago. Nick Saban said this, and it's absolutely true. But he said that you can't really be mentally tough if you're not physically tough, because the mind's the first thing to go when you get tired. And so this summer, we've really kind of forced the kids to get physically tough, because that is the first thing that goes. Everybody talks about mental toughness, but if you're not physically tough, there's no way you can be mentally tough. So we've been really harping on being physically tough. and pushing yourself past the limit you think you can go.
Well,
So
Coach, going
I'm
into the
really
season,
excited.
yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead.
Coach, tell me this: what are your expectations of this team? Number one, number two. I know you haven't put the pads on yet, but where do you think the strength lies on this team?
Honestly, I think the strength really lies in we're kind of balanced. I think our offensive line is is going to be better than we were last year. Our skill positions will be better just because a lot of our skill guys have got bigger and stronger and they've got more experience. Uh, defensively, I think we're going to be better this year than we was last year. Last year, we kind of changed defenses and we was trying to work out all the kinks. And I think now we've kind of got a good plan and the kids are really kind of understanding exactly what we want. So I think defensively, we're going to be a lot better. And that may be kind of our biggest strength going into the season is maybe we'll be a little bit better defensively. I think if we're going to gain an edge, I think we can gain an edge in our special teams. We've worked really hard in it, and sometimes special teams is overlooked, but you can gain a big advantage in special teams, and so we've kind of put an emphasis on that as well. But that's kind of the way I see it right now. It's hard when you got a young team, even though a lot of these guys are back. It's still hard because you really don't know how they're going to respond. And I'm confident they're going to respond in the right way, but you never know. I've been doing this long enough that you never know. I go back to that old Bear Bryant quote. You don't know what a horse will pull till you hook him to a heavy load. So we're going to see what they do when we hook them to a heavy load.
Well, the good thing is, though, Coach, these 9th and 10th grade kids know how to win. They had some success last year, and, so they're far ahead of the game than you have been. So, that has to be a positive outlook for you going into the season naturally.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what we want. We want them to understand that they got an opportunity to win, not, hey, can we get through this game? Because I think sometimes that's kind of been our attitude around here at times. I ain't saying all the time, but at times. But I think these kids, they kind of know, hey, if I keep chopping wood, that I'm going to have an opportunity to win this thing. Now we got to get over that hump to when we get that opportunity, to put our foot on the throat and make it happen. And that's something, Coach Graham's a real good friend of mine, and he's we do a lot of things together, and I had him come up and talk to the boys just the other day, and that's one thing he said: don't be the guy that looks around wondering who's going to make it happen. Be the guy that makes it happen. And that's what I'm looking for this season. I want 11 guys that's going to make something happen.
Yeah, Sam Graham's an outstanding role model. I know you worked with him during that the camp over at Section. Coach Graham is a great ambassador for high school football. One of my favorite entire people.
Oh yeah, me and him. I coached with him when he was at Valley Head, and then we're. I mean, honestly, we're about like brothers from a different mother. We have a great relationship, and I talk to him a lot. Sometimes we at least text one another about every day, but he's a great friend, a great Christian brother, and I love him to death, and our kids love him, and I'm just tickled to death they have opportunity to soak up some of his knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, Coach, I'll turn it back over to Howie. We sure do appreciate you coming on. I will look forward to seeing you next Friday at the media days. And, of course, maybe later on in the season we'll get you back on again. We want you to have a successful season. These young men deserve it. And if there's anybody you want to shout out to, you're welcome to do it.
All right. I would just like to say this. I want all my players that may be looking at this and listening to it to know that the challenge out there and they need to accept it and keep working hard. So I want them keep doing what they do.
Yeah, and besides that, too, we want them to be talking about them on Friday night on high school football scoreboard when they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's our goal, and that was kind of their
Yeah.
goal. They want to make the playoffs. We've missed it the past 2 years, and for whatever reason, I'm not going to make excuses for any of it, except I just need to be a better football coach. But we want to try to get back to the playoffs and try to make that happen again on a consistent basis.
Well, Coach, you said that during the wintertime you do a lot of reading, a lot of big on quotes and all that. Do you have a lot of quotes hanging up in the field house?
Oh, Phil House, my classroom. I mean, everywhere. Uh, I'm a big quote guy. Like I have a whole folder in Google Drive that's nothing but all kinds of quotes. The one I really like, and this may surprise you, but it comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says that nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm, and that's kind of what I want our kids. I want our kids to be excited. I'm so doggone tired of seeing them just go out there and try to survive. Heck, football's supposed to be fun. I get kind of fired up, and I get pretty fired up in that weight room. But you know what? Hey, you can't do anything great if you ain't enthusiastic about what you do. And so that's kind of one of them I really like, and it hangs in my classroom for everybody. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, I've got a ton of them. One I
Nothing wrong
like.
with that.
No, one I'll tell you this one too, and I love this one. And I may put this one. I meant to do it this summer, and it's got away from me. But one that I'm gonna get painted in the weight room, but it's from Mark Levy, and he said the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. And I really like that one. So yeah, I'll be honest, I've got all kinds of quotes.
That's great. I want to ask you real quick about the Pee Wee system there at Ider. Do you have a hands-on relationship with the Pee Wee system there? That way
Oh
they kind of know the system coming up.
yeah, and that's one thing that I've been very fortunate here at Ider. Uh, when I first got here, I kind of met with all the Pee Wee coaches, and I told them I didn't care if they run exactly what we run, but I kind of wanted them to learn the terminology so the kids kind of know what we're calling things. So when they get up to junior high, they already know, what it means to strike and to crush and all that stuff is some of the terminology we use. And you know, uh, I'll be honest with you, for the first time in a very, very long time, we have 3 complete teams in Pee Wees. For a long time, we might have enough for 1 team or 2 teams, and this year we've got enough for 3 complete teams. So I'm excited about that. We got people around here. They're excited, and this is the reason why Ider's such a special place, because most time you win 2 games in 2 years, or 4 games in 2 years. Heck, they're ready to run you off. But people kind of see that we're trying to build something, and it's a process. That's one thing that I will say. I kind of think our sport has missed the mark a little bit, because everybody's like win now, but winning's a process. I mean, Nick Saban at Alabama, he can go recruit. Well, we can't, but heck, he got beat by Louisiana Monroe. And, it's a process. And if people will just stay the course, uh, if you're doing a good job, uh, you know, it'll work itself out. But I'm very blessed here because people kind of see that and know what we're doing. We're coaching the kids hard and making them do right, and, trying to do the best for them. And they've been very patient, and a lot of support here.
Yeah, it's the with you and Coach Hammond being on today, it's probably 2 of the biggest support schools in the county. Not taken away from nobody else, but it's like a tight knit community there at Ider and Valley Head as well.
Oh, it is. It is. It's a great place. I was away from here for a very, very long time, but it's always going to be home, and I'm glad that I got an opportunity to come back, and glad I got to come back at this stage in my career. And we're just going to try to keep it going and try to get a little better each and every day, and try to get it rolling in the right direction.
Well, I want to ask you this, Coach. I know it's tough being a high school football coach, and there's a lot more to it than there used to be, because you're not only sometimes you're a dad, sometimes you're a mentor. What keeps you getting up every morning and coming to work and staying motivated?
Um, the burden for the kids, you know, uh, and I think I heard a little bit of Coach Hammond, but I'll be honest with you, this whole world nowadays, they don't want real men anymore. They kind of downplay that a little bit. And one thing that football, I think, helps is to build real men. And when I say real men, I'm talking about men that's going to stand up and do the right thing. And when it gets tough, they're going to put their head down and keep going. And they're going to take care of their families, take care of their wife, and just be good men. And this whole world, a lot of times they don't want that anymore. They kind of put the men, and it's society. But I look at that old show that came on when I was in high school called Roseanne. I mean, the dad was kind of looked at as a goofball, and that's not the way it should be. Men should be taking, and when I say taking charge, I ain't talking about being an ogre, but I'm talking about being responsible for his family and being the leader of his family. And that's what motivates me to get up and come to work every day, because I hope, and a lot of it has to do with the coaches that I had in my life. That's what they instilled in me. And I hope that I can instill just a little bit of that in the kids that come through our program, is that, what, it's not going to be easy. It's not. And sometimes life's going to hit you, and there ain't a thing in the world you can do about it except just put your head down and keep fighting.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If football was easy, then everybody would be doing it.
Oh, that's exactly right. We'd have to instead of building a gym, we'd have to build a brand new field house, because we'd have 80 kids out here playing football. I mean, but it should be hard. I tell the kids that all the time. It should be hard. Nothing, nothing good has ever been just freely given except one thing. I said, everything else, you should have to work for it. It should be that way. And, I hope those kids kind of take that with them as they go through this program.
Absolutely, Coach Grant. We appreciate your time. We know it was a busy day for you being in Montgomery and a All-Star week. And when are you actually getting started on the fall practice?
We actually, because we didn't do a spring, our first practice is July 29th. So we get to start a week earlier than everybody else uh, because of that. But I'm excited to get going. The kids are excited. They're fired up to get started in football, and that's when we get to actually start practice, because we get started a week early.
Well, that's great, Coach. We wish you the best of luck this season. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to give you a chance to do one more shout out to the wife before you get in trouble, in case she hears this.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna say this. I hope she's got supper ready, because I just drove all the way from Montgomery, so she better have supper ready when I get home.
That's separated.
I don't know
Well,
if that I may be in more trouble than I should be. No,
well,
I'm just kidding. No, she's a super support, and like I said, I couldn't do it without her. Uh, and I'm just blessed that God blessed me with a wife that I have, because I tell her all the time, there ain't many people would want to live with me. So she's everybody talks about the patient of Job. She may have that to put up with me for 29 years.
well, Coach, we appreciate it. Get home to her and tell her thanks for sharing some of the time with you, with us, and best of luck on this season. And we'll see you at Media Days come Friday. And thanks for joining us.
All right, and I want to say I really appreciate this. You know, I appreciate what y'all do for high school football, because I'm going to be honest, I'm on here talking, but really it's all about the kids, and I'm glad y'all do that. And I wish I could mention every one of them, but, you know, I'm just tickled to death, and I just thank y'all so much for what y'all do for high school football.
Coach, before you get going, you mentioned something a while ago about buying new helmets and everything. Are y'all doing any fundraising right now where we can promote it on here?
Well, right now we're selling reserve seats. We actually did some upgrades to our stadium. We kind of made some rows so the seats ain't right on top of one another, and we're actually selling reserve seats and reserve parking. You know, they got a real nice gym, and we've got real nice reserve parking. And when the season starts, we're doing a gun raffle too. We're going to give away a gun every home game. And so we've got that kind of going up. Of course, we're still selling signs, and we've had a lot of businesses that's contributed to that. But if you have a business out there that would love to have a sign, just contact me through Facebook, or you can find my number, or Phil has my number. You can get it from him, and we'd be glad to set you up with a Phil sign to advertise your business.
Good deal, Coach. We appreciate it, and we'll let you go. And thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank y'all, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Phil, it's great to have these coaches on with Coach Grant and Coach Hammond taking the time to join us. And, you know, they could have been doing anything else, especially with it being All-Star Week this week. I know that they may not have to go down to Montgomery like they used to, but I think both of them went down this week. But taking the time to join us, you know, that's great.
Yeah, well, most of them do. I mean, even Steve Smith, when I tried to contact him, he had to be in Montgomery today, and we was going to try to get him on. Of course, it's at Westbrook. But eventually, we'll get him. But I thought, well, let's try to get Coach Hammond and Coach Grant back to back, and see if we can go ahead and get them, because we want to try to get some of this in for the season started. We tried to reach out to Coach Pruitt. Maybe we can get him on. Because once football really gets started, it gets busy. And they don't have a lot of time, because they've got to focus on the kids, and because that's what's important. Most of their time is going to be built around those kids. And, of course, this time of year it's exciting for them. And, of course, I know they like to promote, the young men that's playing for them. But it's always great to have them on. I mean, I know they appreciate coming on, but, it's all about these kids. To put them on a pedestal for a little while, make their high school days important, because it is important. We went through that when we were growing up, and we enjoyed having our name mentioned, our name put in the paper, and things like that. It's a big thrill to them, because social media is such a big thing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking about social media, kind of like a little segue to the media days next week. You got a busy week next week, Phil. Tell us where all you're going to be at.
Let's see, Tuesday be in Etowah County, which is down in Gadsden. There'll be the media days for Etowah County, all the Etowah County schools. Then on Thursday it'll be Marshall County. And from what I understand, Randy told me this, and I passed it on to a couple of people. Scottsboro is going to be, which is in Jackson County, is going to be in with the Marshall County, which will be on Thursday. We'll have all the Marshall County schools. And then DeKalb Jackson County will be on Friday. And I'm not sure about all the times yet. I don't think that's ever had. Jeff hadn't sent me that out. But as soon as we get something on it, we'll pass it along. Of course, everybody gets excited about this time of year. What I enjoy about it is when the coaches bring the kids in, and we're able to get the kids to speak, on the big stage. And that's big for them, because they don't get to do very much public speaking, I'm sure, and it's great for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like with QSB doing the media days, kind of like what Coach Grant is doing at Ider, getting them prepared for life as far as the interviews and all that. Of course, don't get me wrong. If you go apply for a job, you're not going to be up on a stage doing a big interview like that, but you have to speak with someone one-on-one, and this is kind of something to help those kids out.
Well, if you're ever going to be a supervisor, if you're ever going to be a manager, you've got to be able to speak to people. You've got to be able to communicate with people. when we talk about how important leadership is, and you don't have to be a vocal leader. Sometimes you just lead by example. I think that's kind of the way I was when I played. If anybody had a question, I had an answer for them. I wasn't a rah-rah guy. But if you had a question, I was there. So, you have different types of leaders on the field, and it takes all kinds to be successful in life. Some have to be vocal, some are behind the scenes. But you need that leadership if you are going to be successful. And Coach Grant talked about that. Coach Hammonds does too. If you've got those leaders on the field that take charge, you're going to be successful on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to be busy with media days next week. RiverCity-Media. Randy's going to be coming down for the Cab Jackson days on Friday, so he will be going in and out live from there, getting interviews. Not only the interviews that they're doing with the media, but also one-on-one interviews with some of the players and coaches as well. And if you're on here watching on Facebook or whatever, go to YouTube, like, subscribe, share, let everybody know. A lot of big things is happening at RiverCity-Media. This is our third show, I think, this week. It slipped my mind, and I meant to apologize to Coach Grant. Randy put up a couple of pictures that we used last night with Clayton Powell Lee from Georgia Tech. He was on here last night. Super, super great young man that's got big things in front of him. But I meant to apologize to Coach Grant about that. But RiverCity-Media.
Apologize because I had to get bathroom. Y'all were going long-winded, so I had to stand up. So when I got up, I accidentally hit the button. But hey, Howie, before you get off here, and again, Coach Grant, I'm sorry I did that, but I really was getting up to go to the bathroom. Monday evening on Beyond the Booth, just booked while y'all were talking, from Eastridge High School, Coach Chad Barger. And Coach Barger's got one of the hardest jobs in Chattanooga and one of the oldest jobs in Chattanooga. Coach Barger with us last year, great friend of the show, someone I would call my closest friend in the coaching community. I love Coach Barger, and I really look forward to having him on Monday.
So Coach Barger will be on Monday on Beyond the Booth. Tomorrow night on the other RiverCity-Media show, It's Still Real to Us. We're supposed to have a show. One way or another, there will be a wrestling show tomorrow night. If we have to, we'll get Phil on there and make him talk about wrestling. Back in the days when they just wrestled on dirt, since he's so old.
You'll have to be talking about Dusty Rhodes and people like that, because that's what I know about wrestling.
So join us on RiverCity-Media. Got a lot of stuff coming up. Like Randy just said, the voice from above, I guess you can say.
Well, I'm in the studio tonight. We got a show Wednesday night too. Phil, that's supposed to be a real big show. Excited to support one of our favorite things. Of course, the transplant games next Wednesday.
Yes, Phil, tell us a little bit about that. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, the Transplant Games of America. Wesley Coleman, I met him during the Transplant Games. He won the 40 to 49-year-old gold medal in tennis, and then I played basketball with him. We ended up winning a bronze medal. So we're going to have him on, tell his story. I know he's originally from Coleman County. He went to school at West Point. His dad, I think, at one time was the superintendent of the Coleman County school system. He now lives near Birmingham, but we're going to have his story on. And then, of course, the week after that, we're going to have another young lady that I met. Her story is super inspiring to hear her husband tell his testimony about what happened while she went through her liver transplant. Will be worth hearing. So we're going to have a lot, on that to have some of those humanitarian type stories, and where people have come back from kind of like the way it's happened with me, come back from a liver transplant and able to go back to regular life, because some of us are blessed beyond better than we deserve. I'm just going to put it that way. But it's great to hear other people's stories and how they rebound and become successful in the game of life.
Absolutely. So, excuse me.
You can't get out without plugging the Sylvania complete Friday night preview, because we're not just going to have Coach Nelson. run through all the guests we're having that Friday, that next week.
Yeah, once I get it worked out, I'm not sure if it's going to be next week or week after next, but
Well,
anyway,
whenever we get to it, we're not set to any set
right,
schedule.
right. But we're going to have, football is a big thing on Friday night. Everybody knows that. But, with my daughter being in the band, most everybody knows that. There's a lot of things that the band has to go through. They're going through band camp right now in this hot weather, just like football players. It's not just like it, but you know what I'm getting at. They're putting in long days, just like football players are. But we're going to have the cheerleader sponsor from Sylvania on. We're going to have that's Miss Corbin. We're going to, if she will. I'm sorry, Miss Corbin, by committing you without actually asking, but Miss Corbin, we hope to have her on. We're going to have Mr. Patrick Roselle from Sylvania, the band director, and we're going to have Coach Tanner Nelson on and go through what a Friday night ball game is going to be like from the very start, as far as soon as you get there, from the victory line all the way to the finishing horn of the game with the whatever they may do after the game this season, because every coach does something new, and Coach Nelson been there. So looking forward to having all that worked out and doing that very soon. And so a lot of stuff going on with River City Media, guys, and it's great. I'd rather have too much going on than not enough.
Well, I'll tell you the best thing. I really enjoy producing programs because currently I have knee socks on, SpongeBob boxers, and a Metallica T-shirt, and y'all had to put your clothes on.
And that's a little bit too much information to hear tonight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Uh-huh.
we're anybody that has any nightmares after hearing that, contact Randy at River City Media.
Yeah.
So let's get out here, guys. Great being on here tonight. Enjoyed everything. So for our producer, QB1 Randall Cunningham, for Phil Harris, I'm the Howie Cheney. This is Beyond the Booth. Good night and God bless.